the Dialed In Angling podcast presented by Strike Master Augers, Onyx Fish, and Arneson's Rocky Point Resort. This week, I am in St. Paul. I'm sitting at Joe's Sporting Goods. They have their big Fish Fest event this week. You know, I've always loved coming into Joe's. It's just one of those retailers. You know, I tell people, if you can't be out fishing, it's fun to be around fishing stuff, right? I spend a ton of time at different retailers, whether it's Joe's, Fish USA, it could be Cabela's, Bass Pro, Shields, you know, all around. And it always seems like different retailers have different things to offer. But Joe's Sporting Goods, you guys have been a cornerstone in St. Paul for a long time now. Today, I'm sitting with Doug Stahly of Joe's Sporting Goods. Welcome to the podcast, Doug.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Doug has, if you've been into Joe's ever, you'll recognize Doug. It seems like he's always here. He's a fish nut. He's a fish head like me, like us. The guy knows fishing. He's been around it his whole life. Doug and I have actually fished together. We were down in Louisiana fishing together a few years ago with our good friend Joe Rassett and their group. Doug, let's just dive into a little bit of the history of Joe's. You know, for me, it's been around for as long as I can remember. I've been doing seminars here for a long time, but even before that, I just remember coming into Joe's because you guys always had stuff, right? If you needed a specific item, you always had that. But back us up and back our listeners up to when Joe's started, how they got their start, and sort of the history behind this company.
Sure. There was actually a first Joe back in 1930 that opened up Joe's Sporting Goods. It was a Buick repair garage back in 1930 over on Dale and Como. They used to fix cars for gangsters that were coming up from Chicago, and a lot of those guys wanted to go fishing, and they were kind of on vacation from their normal evil doings. So we started selling bait at that time, and it kind of turned into sporting goods, and it kind of evolved from there. Back in the 60s, they started selling skis and hockey equipment, tennis rackets, all kinds of things, but it's kind of it's evolved to where it's a fishing store and a hunting store and a gun store and a big ski store as well. So it's been a lot of evolving going on. And this is the third generation Joe that's owning it currently. Joe's grandfather started it in 1930. His father bought it in the early 60s and ran it until the early 90s, and then Joe and Jim bought it from him and have run it since then. Jim has since retired, and Joe is now the sole owner of the store. But I've been here for 41 years, quite a long time, and been shopping since the early 60s here. So
it's incredible. I do love coming to Joe's because you guys are always on top of, you know, bite trends and that sort of thing. And I know a lot of your customer base has been coming here because of that reason. If there's a lure that's made that's hot, especially in this market, you guys usually have it and you have it under control. And, you know, not to mention the hunting portion. I can't tell you how many times I've come here for seminars and bought like turkey decoys or shells, you know, like turkey shells. Cause like where I live in northern Minnesota, you got to order that stuff out, and it's nice to be able to come to Joe's and kind of experience that. Now, what are some of the hot things? I noticed downstairs, you guys really have expanded your fishing department. I mean, it's almost doubled, right?
It's almost doubled. Yeah. We added another 1,000 square feet of peggable space. That's, you know, for lures and terminal tackle. There's a lot more of it than we've had in the past. We still have one of the biggest selections of rods and reels in the Midwest. But yeah, we've really expanded our tackle selection. A lot of it's bass, a lot of it's panfish, still a lot of walleye stuff and trout stuff. But it's quite a bit expanded. So if you haven't been in a while, it's a lot different looking than it's been.
Yeah, I think your customer base, a lot of them obviously around the Twin Cities, but they fish all over. You know, I know when you come in here, it seems like there's guys that are fishing the river. There's people that are pan fishing some of the small lakes. There's, you know, anglers that are going up to northern Minnesota or destination, or like you said, trout fishing, maybe in southeastern Minnesota. So yeah, we try not to pigeonhole ourselves with, you know, one species of fish. We have a lot of river fishermen around here, and the river is kind of a year-round thing. So, you know, we got the Pool 2 and Pool 4, which is open most of the year.
A lot of walleye guys doing that. Right now, the crappies are coming in shallow with the ice out a little early. Temperatures in the 70s. I mean, there's tons of people that are fishing crappies on the shore. That's a lot of the people you see coming in are getting crappie minnows, getting bobbers and hooks and sinkers and flu-flus and little feather jigs and things. And yeah, there's a lot of things in the Twin Cities they can fish. So.
Yeah,
try to carry a little of everything. A lot of carp and catfish and sturgeon guys too, and so we got a big variety of things.
Yeah, you guys have a lot of niche products that I think some other retailers may not carry, and I think that's the draw for a lot of people. I know you have a very loyal customer base as well. Saying I'm sure a lot of these people have been shopping here probably since the 30s or at least their offspring are, right? I mean,
they might not all be around still from then, but
for sure
Joe looks very good for 95 years old.
Yeah. Well, for sure since the 60s, because I know just doing seminars here, I see some new faces, but a lot of the same faces.
Over and over, yeah.
And I was actually up on the Rainy River a couple weeks ago, and I bumped into a couple of guys that I know I recognize from Joe's from being at the seminars here because I do it every single year for Fish Fest. And there's one guy in particular. I hope I see him here because I want to ask him because he was there the exact same time that I was up on the Rainy River. So
compare stories. That's always fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And you do see the same people over and over, and have the stories about in the '60s when the second Joe took over. The whole family lived above the store. And you could shop there 24 hours a day. There was a doorbell on the back. You'd ring the door. Joe had a bed right back there that he'd wake up and he'd come and let you in and dish minnows. And it's all kinds of crazy stories like that. And thank goodness for airbags. We don't have to be open up 24 hours a day anymore. So
that's wild. That's wild to think about. It's just ring the doorbell.
Ring the doorbell at any time during the night.
You could do that. You could stay here.
We could. When I first started here, we were opened at 5 o'clock in the morning. Then it turned to 6 and 7. And it's like, hey, if you're going fishing, you might as well get your bait the day before. And we've got the tanks and the airbags and try to let people know, hey, we don't need to be open up at 5 o'clock in the morning. You should be out at the boat ramp at that time. So.
I'm not a big skier, although at one point in my life I was. I love downhill skiing. I know you ski.
Yep.
Was that always part of the store? When did the ski portion?
The ski portion came in the mid-'60s.
Okay.
Joe was a skier and wanted his kids to be skiers, and so they were USSA racers and freestylers, and they really got into the skis in the late '60s. The Hart Ski Factory was right behind our store at that time, so it was kind of convenient to just go and pick up all the Hart skis there. And there wasn't that many ski shops around, so that's turned into one of our best departments is the ski shop. There's really no ski shops in the Midwest that are bigger than we are, and full service. We do the tuning and the mounting, and we have snowboards and cross country and downhill and all the clothing. So.
On the Rainy a couple weeks ago, you could have skied down the bank because it was just this ice slick it was thick, and you could have just pulled had someone pull you, and then you could have just pulled your plastic along the bottom, just dragging your paddle tail.
So ski trolling,
yeah, ski trolling. It would have worked out. No, I'm all kidding aside. It is kind of cool when, I've always wondered that ski portion when I come in here, and I see your Facebook posts and stuff where you're skiing a lot in the winter. Let's get into a little more of the history. I know this store is newer than maybe. When did you guys move in this store?
We moved in this store when Joe and Jim, the third generation owners, bought the store. The parking lot wasn't big. It was only 40 spots or so, and they decided, hey, we needed more parking. So they looked at the land here and bought it in 1992 and built this store. And it's about 3 miles from where the old store was on Dale and Como. But it's 42,000 square feet versus 20,000 square feet. So it's more than doubled the footprint of the old store. We thought, how are we going to fill this with product? Well, after the first year, we wish we would have built it bigger. But
yeah.
We got a half basement under here. It's like, well, should have done a full basement. But we have a couple storage units next door, some warehouse space, and we have internet sales and a big shipping department. And it's been 25 years or so since we've built that one. Yeah, a little over 20, I suppose.
Okay. Yeah, this is a good sized store. I mean, when you walk in, and to have as much as you do, what I've always been intrigued by is, the amount of niche items that you do have, though. That's always intriguing to me, like specific baits that, that are hard to find elsewhere unless you go
Specific
online.
for specific or white bass on the St.
Yeah.
Croix River. A lot of places don't have it. Our number one, I always say the number one SKU in the store is a mimic minnow and a 1/4 ounce silver shiner, and that's white bass eat those up and sell 20,000 plus of that one bait a year. And yeah, like you say, there's little niche things, no roll sinkers that you use for catfish and carp fishing. You can't find those everywhere, and pyramid sinkers and circle hooks and a lot of kind of weird things you might not find everywhere, but it's what our customers are asking for. And the other important thing we found is that a lot of the big box stores don't reorder all the time. And I mean, we're reordering every week. And, if you run out of hooks or sinkers or bobbers that people are looking for, they're going to go somewhere else. So we really try to keep all the little, terminal tackle in stock and all the things that are, important to people in stock so they don't have to go shopping all over. I just ordered flies this morning, and in about a month and a half, we've sold like 750 flies. And we're not really a fly shop, but people come here for their flies, and they use it for panfish and trout and everything else. And it's like, wow, it's more than I would have thought we sell.
Well, and specific color SKUs, sometimes you get into a retailer, I'm just talking like a physical store that you walk into, nothing online, but like you get into a store and they'll just have a couple of colors of a particular item. And it seems like you guys have a lot of colors.
A lot of colors.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we, my employees kind of get bummed out that we don't buy depending on the size of the section we're trying to peg, because sometimes it's a little messy. I say, well, we buy depending on what people want, So we'll in one type of lure we might have 6 colors, another one we might have 30 colors, but those all sell. If something is selling less than 6 on a peg, it's not worth having, and we basically buy it on what people want. So sometimes our floor sets aren't perfect, but we do have the things that people want for colors and for models and different types of baits.
Yeah, and that's hard to do. I mean, if you think of like all the soft plastics out there, the different manufacturers, all the hard baits, just Rapala alone.
Yeah,
the amount of SKUs that Rapala carries, and you guys have a lot of those baits, and you have, walleye baits, air quotes, bass baits. You've got, it's pretty incredible the amount of stuff that is down in that fishing department section.
And with these new like 6 or 8 gondolas that we've got, it's we're kind of finding our way with it too. It's like where does everything go and where does it fit? And that's why the guys are always looking for a planogram, and I'm like, well, this is new to us, so we're going to have to kind of play it by ear, and don't want to move it 6 times. Well, we don't want you to either, but we're going to have to find a home for everything, and I think it's starting to look pretty good.
That's interesting because I've never worked in a retail really environment. I mean, not like this, and to be able to plan all that stuff out and make it make sense in the store is sort of like a jigsaw puzzle, right?
It's a lot of chaos. So yeah, we think we plan it all, but a lot of it's just trial and error.
Because I know at home, like I try to like categorize my tackle and stay organized because as a guide, I need to do that.
Very important.
From open water to ice fishing. And, I don't have pegs set up or anything like that, but I do have the bins, and I have them very organized and different sizes and different things. And it's tough to like, if you come and shop at Joe's or wherever you're going, and then you go home and you try to categorize it, it takes time. I can't imagine setting up a whole fishing department. It's sort of intriguing to me. I always said, like, if I have endless amount of money, I would get like peg boards and like peg all my stuff. I've seen people do it in their pole sheds,
Yeah, I do in my garage too. Being a retailer, I do that in my garage too. I have all categorized by the species, and I have the baits all pegged and things like that. And it might be more organized than it is here sometimes, but it's a challenge to be able to have it where it makes sense. And our current setup is trying to do it by species. We have a whole panfish aisle. We have a white bass aisle. The center of the store is primarily bass plastics because those bass guys are crazy as far as buying too much stuff. But that is the challenge, is to make it make sense to the customers and be able to find it. And we've changed things around a bit in the last few years, and I think this floor set makes sense. And pretty easy to find things. And the other nice thing is that it's not a big box store. Whereas if somebody wants something, they can ask me, and I can tell them yes, we can get it, or no, it's not available, or I can have it in a week, or I can get it tomorrow. So that's a nice thing. We have a lot of customers say, well, why don't you have this? And it's like, well, they don't make that one anymore. Or, yeah, I can get it, and they'll have it in a week or so. We do a lot of special orders. I mean, just all kinds of weird things that you wouldn't imagine. But if it's available, we'll get it for them. So that's kind of the fun thing about, having the buyers and the owners, right in the store all the time. You don't have to run anything up a corporate ladder or anything.
Right. Yeah. And, I mean, I'm sure a lot of your customer base is ordering online, like other retailers. But for me, there's sometimes where you want to touch and feel it. I want to look at it. I want to see what that bait looks like, or some new products that I see, let's say on social media. I like to see it in person sometimes.
Yeah, feel it, touch it. I mean, rods and reels are especially that way.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to put it in your hand. You have to put the reel on it, see how it balances. There's quite a few companies in rods and reels in the last 3 or 4 years that have come out and said, we're online only. We have the best pricing and things. And just in the last few months, we've had quite a few of them come to us and say, well, we're changing our business plan a little bit, and we think we might need the retailer to be able to display our products and have people touch and feel them. Well, we think that too. That's why we're here. And we have a really good selection of rods and reels and guys who fish. And like you had said, we got, the people we hire are guys who are crazy fishermen. We had a new guy ask our fishing manager yesterday. He says, is that okay if I have tonight off? And he goes, do you have a family emergency? And he says, well, it's so nice. I'd like to fish. And he's like, well, anytime other than this, since we got our Fish Fest sale going on, we can give you some other evenings off, but, let's work this Wednesday night.
I can think of quite a few people that have worked here, or that I didn't know worked here, that said, yeah, I started at Joe's, like reps in the industry, fishing guides, Mike Verdeja, obviously I'm good friends with Mike.
Yeah, me as well.
Yeah. But there's a lot of folks that I know that have worked at Joe's that I didn't know. I just bumped into somebody not too long ago.
The Petersons, the Kunzers, a whole bunch of people in the fishing industry from reps to, manufacturers and things. And,
gosh, it's eluding me right now, but I literally bumped into somebody and they're like, yep, got my start at Joe's. And I was like, wow, I didn't know that you were a Joe's guy. So that's interesting. I know it speaks volumes for, the people that work here and how passionate they are about fishing. I'm sure hunting is the same way. You got a big hunting gun department. Okay, here's this podcast always seems to go down this wormhole, but obviously it's a popular topic now with forward-facing sonar. How has that changed this as far as like the baits you're carrying, what you're doing, the electronics? I mean, how are you guys handling it at Joe's? Because I know just for me as an angler, the way I fish has changed dramatically.
Yeah. We're now hunting for the fish before we're even making a cast. There's lots of baits that are designed for forward-facing, lots of minnow-style baits, lots of hover-style baits, all kinds of jig heads that are made for them. We're still learning what shows up the best on them. There's now jerk baits that have metal pieces in in the tops that show up better. There's minnow baits that have tungsten ball bearings in them that show up better. We're finding tungsten jigs show up better than lead jigs. So we're learning, and there's whole sections of jigs and minnow baits and jerk baits and things that are made for forward facing, and it is changing the way we fish. A lot of the states are worried that it's going to ruin the fishing, and it's more how the DNRs manage the fish than forward facing isn't going to ruin it. They were worried about that in the '60s when the green box came out. They thought, oh, everybody's going to be able to find them all. Well, still can't make them bite, and there's the limits are what protect the fish too, and the seasons and things like that. A lot of people want to have year-round fishing, and I say, hey, Minnesota and Wisconsin, we've kind of got it made up here. The fish don't get beat up quite as much year-round as they do in Mississippi and Alabama when the seasons are open all year. And we have days where we can go out and catch hundreds of fish, and there's not many states you can do that. So that's all with how the fisheries are managed, more so than the forward-facing. It's not going to kill it as long as we manage it correctly.
I'm with you. I always tell people, like, I just remember when underwater cameras came out, and they're like, oh, you got to ban these things. It's sort of similar with forward-facing sonar, and I do hope our DNR, Minnesota DNR, Wisconsin, they start being a little more proactive as far as harvest limits. Because
they've started to with the panfish. That's very important because boy, with the forward facing and the crappies and things, it's really easy to find where they are. So they do need to be careful on the limits and the seasons and things for them.
Yeah, 1,000%. I was just more or less asking from a retail perspective, just because I just, I look at how I fish and the ways I'm fishing now. And there's times where, I'm shooting at fish and I've got to be able to watch my bait the entire time. And other times I'm watching fish move away from the signal. And so, that's equally important to be able to see them and still cast to them. And I'm adapting as well. I mean, I know there's certain walleye techniques where I've actually trolled, but I use my forward-facing sonar to find those fish and then roll over the top of them. I can think of 2 or 3 different examples where I was pitching at baits and they didn't want it. But as soon as you ripped a bait by them and you didn't have that signal on them, they were striking, even up on the Rainy River. I mean, I know bass anglers see it all the time, but up on the Rainy River, we were trying to shoot at fish and they were not biting. You had to either drag a hair jig or a plastic by them, and they wanted it. But at least you could find them, like, oh, there they are. Okay, and then you'd roll by them. I know smallmouth bass on Mille Lacs, for example, those fish get targeted a lot. It seems like in the spring you can kind of hit them, but that they sort of forget about it. But like, you come July or August, you hit them and they are gone.
They're getting educated to the frequencies of these things.
Correct.
Too. I really learned that this winter with sturgeon fishing. We do that on the St. Croix River. And, it's really cool to be able to put your forward facing down and you see them. I mean, you can see them all over, and you can see them swimming, fins moving and everything. But, a good example is I was out one evening and I saw quite a few of them, couldn't get one to bite. My buddy, who was just using his 2D sonar, caught 26 of them that night, and he was 100 yards down the river from me. And I talked to one guy, he said, oh, yeah, you got to turn that thing off. And, there's some of the fish that are older and, have been around, and they're starting to get used to that. And I think like the smallmouth on Mille Lacs are a good example. They can feel those things pinging, and they know there's a boat around. So
I was on Lake Minnetonka, and I don't fish Tonka very often at all, right? I was out there for like a rapid marine tournament, and I would literally hit these bass and they would dive down. Like a lot of fish that I hit out there, they would instantly dive in the weeds. And, I just sort of had to adapt where I was using it as to kind of see where they're at. And then I would pitch, a Ned rig or something to drop down in there and then work those fish, but I couldn't sit and watch them like you can on a lot of other lakes.
I fish Minnetonka a lot, and in tournaments we turn off our sonar when we're in shallow. If you're fishing docks or shallow fish, you shut them down because those things are bang, bang, bang. They're noisy, and they hear you coming. And I believe it. So
they get conditioned to
it, and the fish will figure it out. We're not going to strip all the lakes of fish just because of it, but it is pretty cool to watch, and it sure makes it easy to find them as far as crappies and some other species.
Well, and I talk a lot on this show about, discovery, like on Dialed In Angling, on the podcast. I fish because I like finding new things, right? And I like new experiences. And for me, it hardly ever comes down to harvest. Like if I'm going to decide to fish somewhere, like to go to a destination, it's because of that experience. It's not because I can eat the fish. I can tell you that. I mean, I do like eating fish, but that's not the sole reason I'm doing it. Like you and I fished down in Louisiana, for example, and had a blast. I mean, that fishery is so incredible as far as catching redfish, sheep's head, everything, right? And it was an incredible experience. But, those guides are so focused on filling that cooler. You and I were telling them, like, dude, we don't care if we gave a fish.
I didn't bring a cooler home. I think you brought home one little cooler, but I'm like, put them all back. I don't care. Well, our live wells are full. It's like, well, then throw them back.
I remember talking to not those guys, but the guides in Florida. And, because we encounter it all the time, meaning me and my son when we go fishing or other buddies. When we go to destinations, I just remember talking to these Florida guys and like sort of pleading with them, like, hey, man, seriously, if you want to keep a couple to bring home, knock yourself out. But we don't want any. We would like to just stay and fish. And, a few of the Florida guides, and I remember some of the guides down in Mexico as well, they get back to the dock and the other guides don't believe them. if they don't have fish, right? It's like sort of like they're lying, and
It's an ego thing. They want to see
yeah.
who filled out the quickest and has the biggest fish, and they want to peg them all up on a board. And yeah, I could care less too. Everybody thinks I'm crazy. I don't like to eat fish. I'd rather eat a cheeseburger or pizza than I would fish. So I put them all back. But it's just fun to catch them, take a picture, and move on.
Yeah, 100%. But I'm also with you in the sense where you still have to, regulate certain things when it comes to forward-facing sonar, certain baits. It's interesting to just an angler, not from a discovery perspective as far as where the fish are at, but I also like discovering what baits are working. And I love trying new presentations. And so that's been equally as fun as using my forward-facing sonar to find the fish. And so, just being downstairs and seeing all those different baits, I always tell people as I get into the different seasons, as the different seasons progress, like right now, I'm just super geeked up to get out and finally crappie fish. It's amazing. Like you were talking about the early ice out down here. We still have ice on like Leech and Winnie, and I have buddies that were just ice fishing last week, and I'm like, I personally can't bring myself to ice fish right now. My full focus is on catching crappies, going pan fishing in the spring, getting my boat sort of broke in. I scratched that rainy river itch, even though I'd like to be back up there. I was telling my son we should go up there sturgeon fishing, even though we can't fish walleyes. It was really fun being up there, and the flow was down a little bit, so it was nice being on that river. But I'm sort of starting to shift towards walleye fishing right now, and just thinking walleyes and even early bass fishing. I want to get your take because I'm on in the court of I want to see catch and release bass fishing in Minnesota. I don't know what your take is on it. Wisconsin has that luxury. I know earlier in the podcast you were talking about giving these fish a rest certain time of year. I think ice fishing, a lot of these fish get rested, especially bass.
They do. Having ice on the lakes for 5 months out of the year really helps, and that gives them a break. But it also gives them a break not being able to do it until the middle part of May as well. And I have a cabin in Wisconsin. I can always go over there and get them. They have catch and release year round, and for some reason it doesn't seem to get as much pressure over there. I get the weird feeling that if they did it in Minnesota, it'd get a lot more pressure for some reason.
See, I want it secretly just because I want to be able to fish. I am so jealous of the guys over in South Dakota, North Dakota, Wisconsin. Everybody can fish around us, and now Minnesota, we have all these great fisheries, and I'm crappie fishing in the spring, catching a few bass on a cork and a small plastic and 3-pound test. I would love to throw a little fluke in there or a jerk bait or something,
Selfishly, I'd love to too, but you just worry about how much pressure they get. You see how much pressure the Minnesota lakes, especially in the Twin Cities, get. They get tons of pressure. Lake Minnetonka, Waconia, some of the bigger lakes. And I think if bass season opened up, they just really get beat up. And I've done done quite a bit of fishing down south in Missouri and Alabama and Mississippi, and boy, the fisheries are nowhere near what they are up here.
But do you think it's because they harvest more bass, or because if we had to catch and release,
it's the harvesting of it. It's just the tournaments every week down there. I think they get beat up pretty bad.
onX Fish is the best tool I have ever used for finding new lakes to target. Download the app today to get fisheries information in the state of Minnesota and Wisconsin, along with research tools for serious anglers and beginners alike. Filter lakes by species, trophy only, keeper fish, abundance, or all of the above. Plan which lakes to fish with the app, navigate to the accesses, and once you're there, use the onX best-in-class weather imagery and fishing hotspots to catch more fish. onX Fish is a phenomenal tool both on and off the water for discovering new fishing opportunities, many of which you would never known existed. onX Fish, the app that is changing the game on ice.
Arneson's Rocky Point Resort in northern Minnesota offers a little something for everyone. Nestled on Lake of the Woods South Shore, it provides easy access to 14 remarkable reefs. Serious anglers know that Arneson's offers some of the best fishing, charter fishing, and small boat fishing options, all supported by the largest protected marina on the lake's South Shore. Accommodation selections range from 1 to 5 bedrooms.
Equipped with all the modern conveniences, guests can enjoy a delightful dining experience and stunning lake views at the Rock Harbor Lodge, an on-site full-service bar and restaurant. The two beaches provide hours of fun for the whole family. Whether you're seeking an idyllic fishing spot or a relaxing vacation, Arneson's Rocky Point has everything you need. Check them out at arnesonsresort.com.
I know friends that, fish Table Rock and all these lakes, and it's like tournament after tournament after tournament after tournament. And where I think, and I'm just gonna differ from you a little bit because I want to see it. Obviously, I want our fisheries to flourish too. I want to have some. I think in Minnesota we're so blessed to have such great fishing. It seems like everywhere I go in the country, as far as inland, freshwater fishing, I'm sort of disappointed to what it is compared to Minnesota, Ontario, North Dakota, South Dakota, even Wisconsin. I think we're very spoiled because we have such great fishing. However, I think if we had a catch and release bass season, I think Minnesota anglers are releasing them. I know the pressure thing, but we're not talking tournaments. There's not going to be derbies on these lakes. Okay, they're not going to hand out permits for tournaments.
As long as they don't do that, that's a big thing.
That and what do you think about this? I think there should be lakes, and this is all just free talking here, but I've always felt that there should be lakes that we have catch and release only on, period.
There are some of that. And part of the problem with that is not having no selective harvest. They really get programmed to be all 1.5-pound, 2-pounders. We have Chisago and Lindstrom that's up just north of us here that's been catch and release for 20 years now. And it used to be you'd get big ones on there. Now it's all couple pounders, 1.5-pounders. So there does need to be some selective harvest. And I think that's the other thing we need to do with the DNR is make it that, spawning females and the productive ones like that need to be protected. And if you want to eat, 12, 14 inches, that's fine. Wisconsin has it kind of backwards. You can kill all of them over 14 inches, and then under that they're protected, which never made any sense to me. You really want to protect the spawning females, protect the ones that are 14 to 20 inches, and you want to keep a trophy, that's fine. But I think they can manage it probably better that way. And catch and release, it'd be fun to have that on a few lakes. And, Minnetonka, you think about that too, because a lot of the bigger ones do get kept out there. But, in some ways it doesn't work. You do need to harvest some of the fish to have them, to not have too many in there.
Yeah.
Some of those lakes, you see them being really skinny too, whereas there's just not enough bait fish to them. It's kind of hard to manage that kind of a thing.
I was just thinking in the sense where, okay, I look at like Mille Lacs. Even though most of the anglers are releasing the fish, but let's just say it was catch and release on Mille Lacs, that there is enough fishing pressure that there's going to be some mortality rate. And so, maybe it's true, maybe it's not. I mean, obviously you cited examples that it obviously isn't. And there's no perfect scenario. That's why I'm throwing those ideas out there as just sort of spitballing them, because again, I would like to see, I think some pan fisheries that we have these 5 fish limits. I mean, those are the lakes I seek out. And I can just think of some really great bass fishing in Minnesota where, I don't think there's a lot of harvest.
Yeah, Mille Lacs is a good example. The fish from 18 to 21 inches, there's a lot of them, and they're fun to catch. And, they let it be so that you could keep, 1/21. It's hard to find 1/21 there because some of the launches and stuff, I think, do harvest those things. But, Mille Lacs is a great fishery that's primarily catch and release.
Yeah, I personally, I don't keep bass. I know other anglers you talk to, they'll harvest some small ones. I personally don't, but I'm not, criticizing anybody that, keeps 1 or 2. I really don't.
Again, the ones that are the males that are 12, 14 inches, that's fine. And I think that's what Mille Lacs has. It has, 18 to 21 protected, and under that you can keep a few if you want. But that's a heck of a fishery.
Yeah, as a guide, I get customers that'll ask me, can we keep some bass? And I tell them no. I'm not cleaning any bass.
We'd rather tell them that. Right?
Pike as well. Like I really don't harvest pike out of Mille Lacs. I tell them, if you want to go catch some walleyes or some panfish on a different lake, I can take you there. Since we're on the topic of regulation, so, I've been asked by a few people in the DNR. I've gotten asked by buddies, changing the walleye limit from 6 to 4 in Minnesota. I know it's been a hot topic. It's been a topic among anglers. I voiced my opinion that I'd love to see it 4. I really do. As a guide and an angler, when I clean 6 fish for people in certain lakes that you can do it, it's just a lot of fish. It really is. It's a ton of fish. I think 4 is perfect. I fish Leech Lake a lot, and that 4 fish is, I think, perfect, to be honest with you. And I've had people even voice their opinions where it would be like, okay, they still want a 6 fish possession, but they want a 4 fish daily. And I don't think that's such a bad idea.
It's not a bad idea either. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Because, people that are on the tourism side of things that say, hey, people come to Minnesota because they can keep 6. I don't know if that's really the case anymore, to be honest with you. I think people like you and I, we talked about our experiences and what we enjoy doing is going to places and whaling on them and having a good time. I think most anglers are like us, Doug, where they go to
more and more.
Yeah, they go to a destination because of that. I mean, I just think of my guide clientele 20 years ago. A lot of them, their sole focus was getting their limit in the boat, right? And then, even to the point where some of them at 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, they had their limit, they were off the water. That's not the case anymore. Most people want to keep fishing, and they love the bonus factor that some of them don't ever get to eat walleyes or any panfish or whatever, so that's why they want to harvest a few. That's great. It gives them that 4 fish opportunity. I don't think most people, when they come out fishing, would not come fishing with me or not come to Minnesota because it's a 4 fish limit. I really don't.
I don't either. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And that's why the panfish regulations, they've been changing those for the better, going down to 5 and 10. When they were 15, 25, 50, that's crazy. That you can strip a 300-acre lake of all its fish with 2 or 3 boats in a month. And then it takes 4 or 5 years for them to come back. So,
right.
Yeah, if you manage it that way, that makes a big difference. And yeah, 4 fish I think is a reasonable amount, and even keeping 2 limits is probably fine in possession. If you got 4 in your freezer and you're keeping 4, that's probably fine. It's enough for your family to eat, and not hurt the population that much.
I think I don't know, maybe it's been 10 years for a lot of these special regulation lakes where they started putting these special regs on panfish, maybe a little longer. I think there was a little bit of pushback at first.
For sure there was.
But now people are seeing that quality panfish. They're seeing these lakes really flourish. And now with these regulations already being in place with forward-facing sonar into the equation, I think those lakes are going to continue to get better and better and better. I really think, and I told the DNR, I think if you tried to implement a 4 fish walleye regulation 10, 15 years ago, you would have had a lot of pushback. Okay, you'd have had a lot of people mad about that. But now people get it.
They get it. People are starting to get it with the crappies too. We talk to customers a lot that say, "Oh yeah, I caught a 14 or 15 incher and I put it back." I'm like, "Way to go!" Those are the spawners that they're producing all the big fish. They're the good genetics that you want in the lake. So, 10, 15 years ago, all the lakes in the Twin Cities, you'd catch 6, 7-inch crappies all you wanted, but nobody wants those. They all want 12, 14, 15-inch crappies, and those kind of disappeared just with, people getting better at fishing, more pressure and things, and people are starting to realize that, hey, these spawning females, I should put a few of these back if I want to keep a bunch of 9, 10, 11 inchers. Those are perfect eaters, and, wow, I caught a 14-incher, let's put that one back. That's spawning thousands of fish every year, so...
Yeah, I talk a lot about it on the podcast, but I think my son's generation, they really don't care. They know that we put big fish back, we put big bluegills back, we put big crappies back, big walleyes. They're the egg layers, bass, same thing. They don't keep bass. They're all about the experience, and every single one of them has a 14-foot boat with a forward-facing sonar, or they ice fish all winter and they've got forward-facing sonar, but they know they're not going to go out to a lake that, the fish are in 30 feet or deeper and start killing crappies just to kill them. it's crazy how educated anglers are as far as self-policing and doing that. And
Yeah, when we were kids, it was you
Yeah.
wanted to get the biggest stringer and hold them all up at the end of the
Yep.
day. And now we realize, well, if you do that, you can really hurt the fish populations, and those are the breeding populations. And people understand that now. I think it's changed a lot to where people catch a 20-inch bass, they put it back. They don't kill it right away and say, look at that. It used to be in the St. Paul Pioneer Press and Star and Tribune, they had the fish contest, and everybody wanted to kill the biggest fish, and you'd get your picture in the paper. But now
Outdoor news.
Outdoor
before
news,
they did the catch and release, it was like giant largemouth some dude's holding. Like, oh my, and it's on a metal stringer.
Yeah, a whole bunch of 5-pounders on a metal stringer. These days you take a picture of it and put it on Facebook and brag to your buddies, but you put it back and it's still swimming.
100%.
Feel better about that.
100%. And I think most anglers would agree with us. I don't think there's a whole lot of pushback. I personally would like to see the 4-fish. I really think it's time. I think it's probably since before 1960, 1956, I think is what I heard for the 6-fish regulation. That's when it went into place. So think about that.
It was keep whatever you want before that, I suppose.
Right. So, I think it's time for sure. Let's talk this spring because, obviously you have Fish Fest going on, tons of anglers coming in. What are some of the hot trends? Obviously, we talked about forward-facing sonar, swimming minnows, that sort of thing. Some of the tournament anglers that have been doing that. It's become extremely popular, the tungstens, that sort of thing. But are there any other things that sort of catch you by surprise this spring where you're like, wow?
Well, this year's nice. We have a river season. In the past couple of years, the rivers have been blowing out, and I think last year we couldn't even fish the rivers until July. So now people can get out in pool 2 and pool 4, and those seasons are open. And there's a good example of catch and release only is pool 1 and 2 here is catch and release only, and people are getting 10, 12-pound walleyes down there pretty consistently. You can't keep them or eat them, but there's a lot of guys that go down there and do it. They fish the wing dams and plastics, and they're doing very well with that. And it's nice to see we've got that season going right now too, which we haven't for a couple of years. So
it's a very cool fishery to me because I grew up fishing Rainy River. I didn't have much river experience, not down here. I didn't fish the Mississippi in the Twin Cities until I was older, 18 or I had no idea about the river. It's so cool from I've never even fished pool 1, but pool 2, pool 3, pool 4, and different times of year and the flow. I went down there with buddies and pitching in slack water with soft plastics for walleyes, to trolling, to bottom bouncing, to catching tons of smallmouth, catching tons of white bass. It's super cool. Giant catfish.
Yeah, big flatheads, 40, 50 pounders. Sturgeon. It's like all kinds of things you can catch. So, yeah, that's getting going right now, and it's been a while since those guys have been able to get out. Just the crappie fishing and the amount of new baits that are coming out too. Northland came out with the pan candy that literally just came out yesterday. We've got a bunch of that's pretty neat. The Elastec baits that you can catch 100 fish on a bait. You're seeing a lot of that. It's starting to catch on now. It used to be a hook, bobber, and sinker and a crappie minnow, but you almost don't need live bait. I hate to say that. We sell lots of live bait, but with the different artificials, you can you don't need live bait anymore either, which is pretty cool.
I personally, when it comes to pan fishing, I use very little live bait on ice and open water. I really don't. I have lifelike plastics. I do use crankbaits and jerkbaits certain times. I just put a video out to actually, I filmed it with Fish USA, but I did a video with them last year where we threw jerkbaits, X-Wraps, and it is super fun. You think the water's cold and they're not going to bite it. Crappies love jerkbaits. If you've never experienced throwing a jerkbait for crappies, it's fantastic.
Yeah, the little X-Wraps and those little jerk baits, we sold thousands of them, and thanks to your podcast and the lenders were talking about it as well, and it just blew up. And I catch a lot of trout with those too, with the little number 4s and stuff. That's a blast to do it in cold water. They eat them.
4s and 6s. They lunch them. To the point where crappies will have it so far down, like it's hard to get it out of their mouth. And, I always think of spring crappie fishing as like float fishing with a light little hair jig or plastic, or, that,
Little waxworm on
yeah, a
it, or a
little
little tiny
waxworm.
crappie
Yeah,
minnow
yeah.
that comes off every bite you get.
Exactly. And that's not the case. These fish are a lot more aggressive than, yeah. Um, Fishing aggressively in the spring. Um, I was out in Green Bay. It was sort of a bust because I hit it a little bit too early. I got out there. The surface temp was about 36 degrees. We had a major cold front. It had snowed the day before. It's always timing. It's like being on the river. You have to time that perfectly to hit it. I had an excellent trip up to the Rainy, but timing things. But aggressively fishing, I always thought, the first time I went to Green Bay or the first time I fished down on Red Wing, I thought, oh, you got to fish super slow. You got to do that. No, man, these fish live in the current. They are aggressive, right? And they hit giant baits. And
big plastics and blade baits and things like that, jerk baits. I mean, they eat them up.
Blade baiting is another thing down in the river where I just fell in love with it. It's sort of like rip and wraps out in Green Bay. That blade bait bite is so fun that if you've never experienced it, just to get down there, and a year like this where you don't have the currents not raging, you can go throw blade baits and be successful. You can catch everything.
Cover lots of water and catch everything.
Yeah, I've had carp hit them where I caught them in the mouth. Yeah, I mean, they literally grab that bait off the bottom. Some of those big buffalo carp too, they're really aggressive. I've had them hit jigging wraps before. I know my buddy, Dan Quinn from Rapala, he's always talking about fishing jigging wraps like on the St. Croix and stuff and catching those giant buffalo carp, I mean, they actually hit that bait. I remember fishing out in western Minnesota on Lake Travers, and we were actually turkey hunting out there in the spring, but it was the border water open on Lake Travers and Big Stone, and we were fishing below the dam, and I it was a jig and a plastic out there, and I'm working it down the current, and wham, I had a hit and set the hook, and it was a big carp. Then we got another one. And another one, and another one. So obviously they were feeding on minnows up there. It's funny how the carp, their diet will change based on what they're
whatever
eating.
they can eat.
But what we were thinking is like whatever turbines or whatever were coming out of the dam, or either that or just the rush of bait that was going up to that warm water coming out of the dam, the carp were feeding on them. And it was amazing. I mean, if you threw a jig and a minnow or a jig and a paddle tail, you were going to catch either a walleye or a carp. And I can just think of the big bycatches that I've caught on pool 4 in particular, 3 and 4, when walleye was walleye fishing, whether it was, big catfish, carp, buffalo carp, whatever. Sheep's head, giant sheep's head. I always call them Dorados. They're like the Dorados of the of the Mississippi.
Yeah, they do look like that.
Yeah, the mahi-mahi or Dorado. They kind of have that head and they fight in the current.
They pull hard. Yeah, they're fun to catch. When I was a kid, I used to fish carp all the time. Just get some corn, an ear of corn, and a plain hook and a bottom rig, and you catch carp anywhere.
I think you can go anywhere on the Mississippi and throw in a night crawler and catch something, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I mean, there's that many fish, the volume of
and going back to the bass thing, too, we have the rivers all around us here, the St. Croix, the Mississippi, and those are open year-round for catch and release. So there's plenty of places you can do that, too, before they spawn and stuff. And
is there quite a few anglers that go out there in the winter that just target bass? I know that walleye anglers do.
Not as many. I mean, they target them with the blade baits and things like that. They go into the wintering holes and they catch them, but they're not as active. It's probably not as fun to fish them as it is going walleye fishing and stuff. But once the spring hits, once it does get to be March and early April, the bass get more active. They start leaving their winter holes, and you can catch them a little more easily on the rivers too. So
I always worry about that, like on lakes like Mille Lacs, the DNR set regulation. Oh, you could fish smallmouth up until, through December or whatever it was at the time. And I thought that's sort of wrong because I always tried to stay away from them in the wintering holes. Even late fall, I've really gone away from targeting those fish in wintering holes because I see them with forward-facing sonar, but they're 30, 33, 34 feet down off the edges of some of those reefs. I don't want to target those fish. I don't want to kill them. I've seen wintering spots completely change because of angling pressure on Mille Lacs. It seemed like after the Angler of the Year tournament, those big deep boulders that we used to fish, not even the ones that are super deep, but just it just got exposed, right? People weren't fishing those as frequently. As a matter of fact, I was fishing the east side when Seth came over there. and I saw this big convoy of boats coming over, and I'm thinking, who would be coming over? Because it was really windy, and I had launched out of Hunters, so I would stay away from the entire crowd that launched out of the west side, right? And lo and behold, of course, here comes Seth. He starts fishing those boulders, and from then on, some of those boulders I don't even fish anymore just because they get the constant pressure, and they have ever since the Angler of the Year tournament. But a lot of those wintering holes have really changed dramatically as a result of that. And it's fine, like some of the shallower ones I'm fine with, but the deeper wintering spots, I just stay away from.
It's hard on them pulling them out of deep water. You don't want to be doing that.
No, and if you're gonna, if I'm gonna talk about self-regulation as far as keeping a certain amount of fish and being a steward to the lake, I'm not gonna go out and target these fish deep. That's my argument, has been my argument a little bit with other anglers and forward-facing sonar. People say that's cheating, whatever. No, actually, like on Mille Lacs last year, I didn't fish much deeper than 20 feet. I mean, there was times a year where I might have caught some fish on top of the mud flats, but I used to spend all of July, August, September trolling lead core out in the basin for 3.5 months out of the year, targeting those fish in deep water. I don't do that anymore. I can see them up shallow. Yeah, you don't need
There's a lot of big fish up shallow, a lot more of the year than you'd think.
Last year, people were complaining how tough the bite was in the fall as far as for walleyes. And it absolutely got tougher because of the amount of bait. But there was a fair number of biting walleyes that were under 10 feet of water. And I stayed shallow. And most of them I found when I was bass fishing, I was like, whoa, there's a big group of walleyes. And then certain ones would bite and other ones didn't. But, if the wind blew a little bit and those fish were up there, I knew I could go to certain areas and catch them pretty consistently.
Yeah, some of the bigger fish on the lake there are shallow a lot of the times of the year, and we get them on hair jigs in 3 to 5 feet of water.
Yeah.
At weird times where you wouldn't think, you see all the walleye guys dragging stuff out in 20 to 30 feet of water, and you get, 28 to 31 inches in 5-6 feet of water a lot of times.
I'll talk about it in the seminar tonight. A lot of techniques that I use, I perfected bass fishing, but I caught a ton of walleyes doing it, not just on Mille Lacs, but other lakes. So many other lakes, the walleyes in particular are stocked in that fishery, so they're weed walleyes, and they relate only to the weed lines. And so, I remember going, I do a lot of trips around the Brainerd Lakes area too, and on Gull Lake, Pelican, all these lakes that I grew up fishing, I knew they were in the weeds. I've always caught them in the weeds, but it's like after zebra mussels and things really started clearing up, especially like on Gull, you started seeing them, and they're like, there they are. You could see them with your own eyes even before forward-facing sonar. So I would basically just implement bass fishing techniques to catch them. That was either ripping plastics, swimming plastics, even before forward-facing sonar. That was throwing jerkbaits, throwing crankbaits, DT10s. I caught a ton of walleyes on them, throwing them up there, especially certain times of year when they're really feeding it on crayfish. And so there was a lot of bass techniques that I now use for walleye fishing where I would consider it like power fishing, but they work great for forward-facing sonar.
Yeah, I caught my biggest walleye a couple years ago in the Canadian Bass Championship up on Rainy, 31.5-inch one on a jackhammer in 2 feet of water.
Right.
On Gull Lake and in some of the Denny's tournaments on fishing weeds with jackhammers, we caught lots of 27, 28-inch walleyes in 5-6 feet of water, buried in the weeds. So yeah, it is amazing the walleyes you catch when you're bass fishing.
The chatterbait phenomena, right?
Yeah, everything eats them.
Yeah, I remember being out in Sakakawea, and I was throwing plastics up shallow. Like this was pre-forward facing sonar, but it was a wind-blown point, and it dropped off. It was sort of like just a big flat, really, and the fish were just loaded up on the flat. If you got too far into the rock, you caught smallmouth. If you got on the edge, it was walleyes. My son was throwing a chatterbait, and he's just teeing off on everything on the chatterbait because they eat smelt out there. So anything white up there in that chatterbait, I just remember how magical it was. And it's just one of those baits that catches fish.
It's easy. Yeah, there's even panfish ones now where you catch crappies on them, trout on them. It's pretty amazing.
Before I let you go, Doug, I know we got to get back to it. I got a seminar. You got Fish Fest downstairs. I'm sure you got a ton of people waiting for you. Before I let you go, though, if someone is in the area, whatever, they come into Joe's, they're not experts on any particular technique. You can always talk to your guys, right? I mean,
Yeah, we have guys who are experts in a lot of areas, and if somebody's not an expert in one area, there's always somebody around who knows something about it. So, and we try to, hire people that are really passionate about fishing and hunting and skiing, and you'll find a lot of people that are retired guys that have been fishing their whole lives, and they just love talking about fishing. And yeah, you don't need to be intimidated and think it's a bunch of tournament guys in here. It's guys who fly fish for carp. It's guys who crappie fish, and most of our guys after work in the spring here, they're going out crappie fishing and with their headlamps on. And we do have tournament bass anglers and walleye guys and guys who have been guides and things. But if you just want to get into fishing and want to find out where you can bank fish with your kids, we've all grew up doing that too, and that's the nice thing about the Twin Cities. There's so many opportunities around for somebody to go take their kids out fishing from the bank, or hire a guide and go out in Lake Minnetonka or wherever. There's lots of good opportunities.
I think it's important because a lot of people are just casual anglers. They just want to go have fun, and they get a little bit intimidated coming in a specialty shop like Joe's. And I just know from working with you guys and being here, doing seminars, that every conversation I have at the counters and stuff is pretty laid back, and everybody gets into talking fishing.
Yeah, when we're interviewing people, we want to make sure that they're people that are into fishing and knowledgeable about it. But more than anything, just need to know how to talk to people. We want people that are friendly and can have a conversation with people. And nobody's on commission or anything, so it's not high pressure sales. And we just want people to get them set up with the stuff they need, not with the stuff we want to sell them. So, like you say, it's just fun to talk to the guys, and almost to a fault sometimes. You have to say, "Oh, we are here to sell some things," but that's what's kept me here so long, is talking about stuff that I love, the fishing and the skiing, and don't be intimidated to come into the store and ask questions, because that's what we're here to do. Is we tell people to listen and answer questions, not to sell people stuff.
I know, I'm sure you've had customers that you've probably known since you started here that still come here. So
most of my fishing buddies have been customers and employees and things like that. And I've seen people that have been customers for years, and people that have even been customers from longer than I have here. So
very cool. Yeah, I think it's a cool store. I've always thought it was a cool store. Again, I'm a huge fan of any fishing or hunting retailers that are anywhere in our realm of where I travel. But Joe's has always been, I've always loved coming here and doing seminars. Everybody's always open arms. They love talking fishing. And it's like when I get here, it's like old home week every time.
Well, it's obvious that you love it too. That's why we love having you here for the seminars and things. And you're always answering everybody's questions, and you always hang around afterwards. And obviously, you're super into it too. So we appreciate you having you here for the seminars and Fish Fest every year, spending your time.
Well, I know fishing is a disease, so I can relate to all the customers that come in. I'm a consumer as well. I mean, trust me, when I go downstairs, I'm not just buying turkey stuff when I'm here. I'm always looking at different soft plastics and crankbaits, and even some of the stuff I'm really familiar with. Like, we get a new product launch at Rapala, for example, and we get a few samples of baits, but to see them all on the shelf all at once is always pretty cool. So
it makes it fun trying new things too. I mean, there's always new stuff coming out, and like you say, trying new techniques, that's most of the fun of it. We're all kind of collectors of baits and things, and trying to learn new ways to do it, and finding that magic color and magic bait, and that's kind of what we're always chasing.
That's great. There's always room in the tackle box for something new. I always think every year, it can't be, how can it get any better? But there's always something that comes
always something
out.
better. And,
yes.
My wife always says, "How many rods do you need?"
Yeah.
Don't have enough.
Right.
Can't ever have too many, right?
I'm a huge fan of, using the right rod for the right technique, the right line species for the right technique. I mean, just like you, I'm a very technical angler when it comes to certain things. The right soft plastic, the right jig head I can see on forward-facing sonar. I mean, it's all part of that. And so when you get into that equation, it always seems like you're out there and doing it, and you're getting after it, whether you're bass fishing, walleye fishing, pike fishing, muskie fishing, trout fishing, carp fishing, And there's always some lure where you're like, oh man, if I had this in just one more color.
It's always evolving too.
Yes.
There's always better line and better rods and reels. I mean, we all started as fishing from shore with a cane pole, and you can catch plenty of fish with a hook, bobber, worm and a sinker. You can catch fish anywhere you go doing that. But there's always a cooler, newer, technique that's out there, newer products for rods and reels and things. It's just fun seeing how it evolves.
Fun seeing how it evolves, and it also is, there's something about mastering a technique and really getting it down. And especially when you stumble into something, because I know you fish a lot of bass tournaments, when you stumble into something that no one else is doing, that's what is intriguing to me. That's what excites me. Now with forward-facing sonar, there's certain things that I've been doing that I'm just, either just scratching the surface on, or I hit something where I'm like, wow, those fish love that bait. And that's why I fish. That's what draws me to fishing. And that changes. Like we talked about, that changes throughout the year, from spring crappie fishing to bass fishing to walleye fishing. I was just down in Florida last week on the podcast, throwing backwater for snook. Fishing is fishing is fishing. It's all relatable, and you can use it all. It's like a memory bank, and anglers learn from other anglers. I know Joe's is a staple in St. Paul. So if you're an angler, swing on into their store, say hi to Doug. It's hard to believe. If you look at Doug, you won't believe that he's been here 41 years. He has no gray hairs because
lots of gray hairs.
Well, Doug, thanks for sitting down with me on the Dialed In Angling podcast. Hopefully people are getting out, experiencing some spring crappie fishing. We're finally starting to lose the ice in northern Minnesota. We're almost there. Spring is on the horizon. I couldn't be more excited. Stay tuned. Next week, we've got more to come on the Dialed In Angling podcast. Thanks for tuning in.